Hello and welcome. All right, let's dive into one of the most heated topics in Europe today. But we're going to look at it from a totally different angle. What if you thought of the entire continent as a living, aging body? And what if the only thing that could save it was a massive, continent-wide transplant? Let's get into it. And look, this isn't just some dramatic metaphor. According to the source material for this whole explainer, it's actually a really powerful framework for understanding modern immigration. We're talking about a demographic and economic procedure that's basically designed to ensure the very survival of Europe's social model. So every medical procedure has to start with a diagnosis, right? And for Europe, the diagnosis is, well, it's pretty stark. The continent is getting old, and it's happening fast. That number right there, that's the median age across the entire European Union. And to give you some perspective, it's climbing by 2.2 years every single decade. Now, this isn't some slow, gentle drift. This is a rapid acceleration toward a demographic cliff, and it's threatening the very engine that powers the continent's economy. And here's the consequence of that. More than 1 out of every 5 people in the EU is now over the age of 65. I mean, think about that. It creates this huge dependency ratio. You've got fewer and fewer workers supporting a growing number of retirees. Without some new vitality, the whole system is really facing a potential collapse. Okay, so if you're faced with that diagnosis, what's the treatment? Well, the source we're looking at presents immigration as that vital transplant, a necessary injection of youth and labor that is, right now, keeping the economic heart of Europe beating. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because it totally flips the whole "they're taking our jobs" debate on its head. With native unemployment at historic lows, immigrants aren't displacing workers. What they're actually doing is filling a massive vacuum, taking almost 2/3 of all the new jobs created, and basically preventing the economy from grinding to a halt. And this isn't some one-size-fits-all solution either. You've got different models happening. In Spain, immigration is the raw fuel making it the fastest-growing major economy in the Eurozone. At the same time, you've got Germany running this super targeted talent offensive, going out and actively recruiting the world's best and brightest. Two completely different strategies, but they both rely on the same vital ingredient. And to win what the report calls the Champions League for talent, Germany is getting strategic. They're actually lowering the financial barriers for high-skilled professionals. By making it easier for an IT specialist or an engineer to move there, they're not just filling a job opening, they are literally importing innovation. And, it's not just about these high-tech jobs. If we circle back to that Spanish model, the direct financial impact is just stunning. That number, that's the net fiscal contribution, so taxes paid minus services used for the average non-EU immigrant in Spain. It is 75% higher than a native's contribution. Why? Because they arrive in their prime working years, and they cost the state zero in education. In the short term, they are a pure fiscal gift. But of course, no major transplant is ever free of side effects. It just doesn't work that way. While the economic benefits are clear, this procedure is causing some real, tangible stress on the social body. It's leading to, let's call it, inflammation in areas like housing, public services, and social cohesion. Housing is, you could argue, the most explosive side effect. It's simple. Where supply is tight, more people means higher prices. Madrid is the extreme example here, with rents just skyrocketing. The report argues this isn't an immigration problem. It's a housing supply problem that immigration is exposing. And as a fascinating little counterpoint, just look at London, where prices actually went down after Brexit. Okay, so this is the next big concern you always hear, right? Are our hospitals and our schools at a breaking point because of all the new arrivals? The perception is definitely one of overwhelming strain. But what does the data actually tell us? So here, the data really challenges that whole narrative. Because immigrants are typically younger and healthier when they arrive, they actually use healthcare services significantly less. The report has a name for it, the healthy immigrant effect. So the pressure isn't so much on capacity, but on adaptation. Things like providing language services and helping people navigate the bureaucracy. And now we get to the most potent side effect of all, the fever. This is that point where objective data just smashes up against deep-seated emotion, especially when it comes to things like crime, security, and identity. This is the single most politically charged belief in this entire debate. It's a feeling that shapes elections and can drive a wedge right through communities. But again, is it actually supported by the data? This number is pretty staggering. Over the last 30 years, a period where the global immigrant population grew by 2/3, the global homicide rate fell by 1/3. Now, if immigration were a primary driver of violent crime, you would expect to see the exact opposite trend. And this right here is the definitive conclusion from a massive study that covered 55 different countries. The crucial point they found is that the key variable isn't where someone comes from, it's their legal status. An immigrant with a work permit is dramatically less likely to commit a crime. Legality, it turns out, is the best security policy. So why does the fear stick around? The source describes this political feedback loop, what it calls a thermostatic response. First, the public perceives that immigration is high. That leads to a demand for more restrictive policies. Then, mainstream parties start using tougher language to try and win back voters. But all that often does is validate the core message of radical parties, which makes the whole issue even more central and more polarized. So, what's the long-term prognosis for this great transplant? To find out, the report suggests we just need to look across the Atlantic, where the U.S. is kind of experimenting with what happens when you try to reject the transplant altogether. And the projected results of that experiment? They're devastating. Removing millions of workers and consumers from your economy doesn't create a paradise for native workers. It triggers a significant recession. The source actually calls it a form of partial economic suicide. It's a pretty stark warning for Europe. So after this really deep dive, the report leaves us with 4 core conclusions. First, immigration is the parachute for an aging welfare state. Second, the real crisis is about bricks, not borders. We have to build more homes. Third, providing legal status is the absolute smartest way to ensure security. And finally, the future will be won by the countries that can become magnets for global talent. And that leaves us with this final, really challenging thought. Based on all the evidence of this demographic transplant, the source is asking us to reconsider everything. For a continent that's right on the edge of decline, maybe the greatest risk isn't that people keep coming, but that one day they might just choose to go somewhere else.